After an absence of 5 years, British cycling sees the return of professional stage racing to our roads with the 2004 Tour of Britain. 95 riders, 23 nationalities and 16 different teams will compete over 800 kilometres in 5 days. And just like the Tour de France, it's all free to watch. Just stand by the road and the race will come to you. It all kicks off here at Manchester's Sports City, a legacy of the Commonwealth Games. It's only 2 years since the Games lit up the skyline around the new City of Manchester Stadium. The venue was then home to track and field athletics, but now Manchester City Football Club are residents. Across the road is the velodrome, where British athletes grabbed glory in Manchester's Games. Since then, it's been a first-class training facility which has helped produce golden results at the recent Athens Olympics. Bradley Wiggins won gold, silver and bronze at the Games, and we're delighted to have him here with his Credit Agricole team.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I think it's. I don't know. I don't know what to expect at the moment. I've just been in this whirlwind since Athens, and feet haven't touched the ground at the moment, and I'm a bit. It's in a bit of a blur with it all, really.
Well, we're starting very close to where you were training for the Games at the velodrome, and this first loop, you must know the roads out here quite well.
Yeah, I know them quite well from training rides and stuff through the winter, but that's probably what's worrying me the most. Really, is the fact I know them. I know how hard they are and I know what to expect.
The big name pros include Andreas Klöden, second in the Tour de France this year, and his T-Mobile team. Jose Azevedo, fifth in the Tour, leads a strong US postal team. After 2 stage victories in France, the 23-year-old sprinter Tom Boonen will be aiming to make a big impression. Axel Merckx, the 32-year-old son of Eddie, rides with the Lotto Domo team. Michele Bartoli, winner of one-day and stage races, is here. And British champion Roger Hammond leads the 6-man squad of MrBookmaker.com.
I've come here to try and win the race, but obviously it's a very difficult race to win. There's a very strong field here. If you look at the quality of riders, it's probably the strongest race outside of the Tour de France. So, you know, I've put my aspirations, in check a little bit, but I've still come here with a lot of motivation to try and do well in my home tour.
The tour route has been designed with the support of the regional development agencies to test courage, skill and stamina, as well as presenting some of the nation's most scenic countryside to a worldwide audience. Starting in Manchester, it moves through Yorkshire, the Peak District, then South Wales, before a grand finale on the streets of Westminster. Well, with me now is Hugh Porter, who commentated on the fantastic Olympic performance in cycling in Athens, and now with a professional tour in the UK. This is great news.
It's wonderful news, absolutely fantastic. I've had an uncontrollable passion for cycling ever since I was a little boy. But there's a long tradition of stage races in our country. After the Second World War, towards the end of the 40s and the beginning of the 50s, there used to be the Brighton to Glasgow, and this was then followed by the Daily Express Tour of Britain, which ran over 14 days. My father used to take me to see 1 or 2 of the stage race finishes. But it was the milk race which really captured the hearts of the public. Everybody knew about the event. They traditionally turned out in their thousands on the roadside to shout the riders on. All the school children were let out of schools to wave the flags and chant the names of their favourites. The event spanned 5 decades, with the inaugural race in 1958 and the final tour in 1993. It was known throughout the world. Everybody wanted to compete. It was a launch pad for many a pedalling superstar. Towards the end of the milk race run, it was a turn of the Kellogg's Pro Tour. And this contest attracted the biggest names from Europe, super champions, and that ran from 1987 through to 1994, a span of 8 years. We then had the Pro Tour for a couple of years, but since then there has been no major stage race, a drought of 5 years. But now the Tour of Britain is back. It's great news.
The opening stage takes the Peloton from Manchester and into some stunning countryside on a 207-kilometre loop. After the climb and nick of Pendle, it's on to Blackpool before turning east towards Preston. Then the Belmont climb before a fast descent into Manchester. Under beautiful skies and with perfect racing conditions ahead, the Tour of Britain gets underway. Your commentators are Chris Boardman and Hugh Porter.
And here on the field, just rolling out from the Sports City. What a glorious sight this is. We've waited 5 years for the Tour of Britain to come back, and now it's here. Just a little gentle chat amongst the riders at the front, because it is neutralised in the early stages, but once that flag is pulled in, then the race will be on. And believe me, there's 1 or 2 riders here who are out to put markers down.
Indeed, all of these riders know how to ride a stage race, many kilometres to be covered, and they're not going to start before they have to.
So on the lower slopes here of the first climb, this is Ramsbottom Rake. It's categorised as first category, so that means there are 10 points waiting for the first rider over the top, 8 to the second and 6 to the third. So on the left it's Duncan Urquhart from Scotland, and on the right it's the young Welshman, that's Robert Partridge, only 18 years of age, and from South Africa, Rodney Green, although he does like to be known as Jock. He rides on the professional Barlow World Squad, the only second division team in South Africa. And these three are pulling away well from the main field.
Partridge looks to be struggling a little bit there. This is a particularly short, sharp climb. Most of the riders not really used to this kind of climb.
And look at this. There was a reaction, wasn't there, in the sprint by Green, but Urquhart has got the measure of his opponent. And Urquhart, when he's not on duty on his bike, he's actually a corporal in the tank regiment. But that's a useful 10 points for the Scot, who looks to be riding to a game plan for the King of the Mountains here. So confirmation of that first climb. Urquhart of Scotland picks up the 10 points, Green the 8 for second, and Partridge of Wales 6 for third. Glorious scenery here. Wonderful weather, perfect for the stage race. Here are the main field, and at the moment, well, there's no interest being shown at all, and the gap you can see is confirmed at 9 minutes and 7 seconds. It's the kind of news you want to hear when you're in a break.
Well, they've managed to make the breakaway, but they've got an awful long way to go. They're going to need to work together, be careful on the climbs, because you're not going to make this kind of distance on your own. They will need to keep together and use each other.
Glorious shot there, the district of Pendle, which draws its name from the Pendle Hill, which is forever linked to the tale of the Pendle witches of 1612, and there we are, a good view of the summit of the climb.
We can see the reason we call it the nick there, the cut, as this road just ploughs through the top of this hill.
And once again, the leading three begins to fragment, and the man that's struggling to stay in contention is young Partridge of Wales. This must be a real tough learning curve for him, only 18 years of age. And the man at the front is more accustomed to riding great distances, the professional Green.
Well, so many kilometres to be covered between these climbs, they really should be a little bit more careful. They're going to need young Partridge when they get over the top of this climb. I think the gap they've got, Hugh, they really should be trying to keep it together.
Field just continually tapping along. There's no urgency being shown at all at the moment, but as you said, Chris, it is a long way to go to the finish when they get back to Manchester. Now Urquhart will be looking to try and add to the 10 points he picked up on the first ascent of the rake.
Gets particularly, just kicks towards the end, particularly steep little section just coming up now on this climb before they start the descent, which in itself is particularly hazardous, really sharp, very steep. We are particularly lucky today that we haven't got any rain about.
So Urquhart, who comes from a little village in the Hebrides, is inspired by the big crowd here. He'll be out to try and beat Green to the line. It'd be rather nice for him to return to Manchester and collect the first polka dot jersey as the King of the Mountains in the competition. Going well, rode in the Commonwealth Games back in 2002, representing Scotland. So still at the front, Urquhart. Green just poised on his shoulder. He got the better of Green quite comfortably when they got to the summit of the Ramsbottom Rake. Now then, has he got the same here for the Nick of Pendle? Just look at this massive crowds, and this is testimony to all the hard work of the Northwest Development Agency. Look at this, Urquhart going up to the top, no problem. It'll be 10 points for him. He's riding very well, this Scot. Obviously, he wants to get back to Manchester with the polka dot jersey. 20 points, that'll take him up to now. Let's just get confirmation of the climb. It was Urquhart of Scotland for 10. Green picks up the 8 and Partridge the 6. Ryan Cox led the bunch over, 12 minutes and 6 seconds behind. Still a lot of work to do. At the moment, the bunch are still sauntering along in the lovely conditions, but there's still a long way to go, and it's quite normal for riders to go clear and build a big lead.
Well, it's a very expensive way to get a stage win, and it's also not the most reliable, but these two are determined to have a go as they come up to the first of the day's sprints.
There are 3 sprints, and there we are, crossing the line, and first was Green. Urquhart second, so they seem to have a little bit of an arrangement here. Urquhart gets the maximum points in the King of the Mountains. Green picks up top points in the sprint competition. If he continues like this, then of course he will collect the blue jersey at the end of the stage. Meanwhile, the Welshman Partridge, he's in no man's land.
Well, it's not a pleasant place to be, stuck out there on your own, and he's got to make the decision. Do I push on in the vain hope that I'll get third place, or do I wait, save some energy and let the peloton catch me up?
Well, the caption confirmed that it was Green over the line first, second was Urquhart, and Partridge third. Now then, the field look as though they're thinking about picking up the tempo here, because that's a massive gap, 18 minutes.
Well, they're going to have to start sorting themselves out soon. It's certainly a closable gap, but it will take some time to do.
Partridge, meanwhile, continues to tap along. Here are the field. They're going to scoop him up. 55 miles covered on this stage. That will be over 200 kilometres, or 128 miles by the end. So, well, he's been out front. He has shown himself, so he's enjoyed the applause of the crowds, but now he'll have to try and stay in the field. Super shot there of Blackpool Tower, which of course dominates the skyline, 518 feet.
One of the reasons we might see a little bit of activity back in the peloton is not only the gap that needs to be brought down, but coasts are always associated with wind, and crosswinds can make things very uncomfortable for a peloton. So perhaps that slight nervousness has made people start to think about picking up the pace.
Right at the far end of the front here is the second of the sprints. 3 seconds, 2 seconds and 1 on the line, and Green has already picked up the 3 seconds, so in effect on the road he is the yellow jersey.
Well, it's all going to come down to that final sprint, I think, Hugh, and these two perhaps working together, paying less attention to the bonuses and thinking about that final effort.
Brave effort by both of these riders. I think they know they will eventually be pulled back. 14 minutes, so they've chipped away at the advantage as the big teams now start to take close order.
Yes, it would certainly seem that just about every major team in the race has contributed a man to this job of getting these two riders back. You can see some very experienced riders there. Andre Perron of CSC just coming through, very much an old hand at this kind of thing, and they know when it's time to go to work. Make sure that these two aren't given too much leeway.
Perron, a former gold medal winner for the team title a few years ago. He'll be trying to raise the game, thinking about his team leader, that's Mikel Bartoli. But here they come now, up to the line, and Green will be there first. 5 points for him, and of course the important 3 seconds.
Still a lot of kilometres to go yet, and we can see that with these two. There's no mad effort to try and gain time. They're pacing their effort for many hours to come yet.
So there is the result confirmed. Green picking up the 5 points and the 3 seconds. Urquhart the 3 points and the 2 seconds. And Van der Sloot, the Belgium, riding on the relaxed Bodysol squad, getting the 1 second. And the gap now down to 11 minutes and 18 seconds as they head on towards Lytham.
Englishman Roger Hammond scoring a point there. I wonder if we'll see him try and contest this competition a little bit later on as well.
On here, just come to the feeding station. Looks like Urquhart sharing his food with Green, who must have missed his musette, but the motorbike comes up and provides the missed musette, and right on cue.
That's nice to see a little bit of sportsmanship. Both of them looking after each other. They're going to need each other for the rest of the day, so making sure that one doesn't run out of energy.
There's a glorious shot of the famous golf club here at Lytham. And the gap continuing to fall as we are now into the second half of this opening stage. And I feel sure that these two will know that they're going to be swallowed up by the main field, who are now beginning to take their turns at the front, and the pace is increasing all the time from the main peloton.
Well, they've been out here an awful long time now. We can see their pedal rate has dropped, showing how fatigued they are. Even back in the main group, which is starting to really push on, some fatigue also seems to be evident here too.
All the big teams, Quick Stop de Vitamont, US Postal and Credit Agricole, and from a maximum of 18 minutes it's now down to just over 4.
Well, Urquhart's not looking quite as sharp as he was before. Indeed, he's in second position for the first time on a climb today. And there you have, in the bottom corner, his pulse and that has got to be approaching his absolute maximum. So his poker face being belied by the pulse there. He's really struggling over the top of this climb. It's been a long day, and he's going to feel that tomorrow, Hugh.
Certainly is, and that's only categorised as a third category ascent, so there's not as many points available. But the good news for Urquhart is when he does get to Blackpool, he will collect the polka dot jersey. Look at this, just over 2 3/4 minutes the advantage now, and the teams are beginning to assemble, aren't they, at the front? The ones that know they've got sprinters. Good to see Tom Southam on the right there, riding for Great Britain, silver medal winner in the National Championships.
Well, 30 kilometres to go. That's a raceable distance now. Everybody senses that fatigue, and of course when your legs are tired, that means everyone else's are too. People just want the day to finish, and maybe that's when the cracks appear.
US Postal coming over the top in third position behind our two leaders, and Southam, well, looking pretty strong. And we are then, it was Vandenbroek from US Postal and Tom Southam in fourth position, trailing the two over the top first. Overall situation, Urquhart with a 3-point cushion over Green, so that means he will climb the podium when we get to the finish in Manchester. Now then, Green knows he's going to be swallowed up by the main field. Here they come. I think he knew it was inevitable, but he's now going to be caught, and he's been out in front for about 114 miles.
Well, Salvadelli there, Telecom, not somebody you want to give too much room to either. These roads can only really be described as heavy, Hugh, and they must be taking their toll by now, right at the back end of the day.
Well, Manchester awaits, and we're now into the roads that will lead to the finish. MrBookmaker.com tapping out the rhythm at the front. Looked a bit like Ben Day, the Australian there, but the man he's got with him, he doesn't want to take him away, because that's Zanini, who really is a rapid sprinter.
Well, being a sprinter, I'm surprised that he's actually contributed quite a lot towards the back end of this stage. I would have thought that he would be letting his teammates do the work, and he save himself for that final charge. But he's obviously decided that this is his best chance today. Just a few kilometres remaining, and it looks like a reasonable group is forming there.
Zanini, of course, is the man that normally leads out Tom Bonan, the Belgian, but he's gone clear, and we've got about 5 riders beginning to knit together. They've got an advantage of around about 200 metres. Now, in the roads that twist and turn to the finish, this can be quite an advantage.
Well, everybody having a quick look to see who's here, who's represented, and whether they want to work. It's a really good size, just half a dozen riders or less. It means that everybody is likely to contribute, and they don't need much. With just a couple of kilometres remaining, they only need a very small margin to stay away.
Of course, the road narrowing significantly with the roadworks, and that will hinder the main field. So if this group starts to work well, it's going to be very good. This is Ben Day at the front in the yellow helmet, riding for the MrBookmaker.com squad, the same team as the national champion of our country, Roger Hammond. Useful move.
Well, it certainly is. And really, they have got no room to hesitate. If they want this move to succeed, everybody has to contribute, and they have to do it now. We can see them all starting to look round. They're deciding, are they wasting their effort? But as soon as you hesitate, this move will be swallowed up by the peloton.
Kieran Power of the Navigators team. Comes from Ireland. Power, good rider. Fast finisher as well, but looks very much to me as though they're going to be caught by the big field.
Southam managed to get onto the back of this group. As we'd expect, attacks being tried here. Just a kilometre to go. Are they going to stay away from this peloton?
So 1 kilometre to go to decide the opening stage of the Tour of Britain. A big crowd waiting for them at the Urbis in Corporation Street. Once again, Day comes to the front, the Australian. Now then, round to this left-hander. Oh, some confusion there. I think a couple of riders went straight on. Now then, what's happened there? Some riders have gone straight on, others have taken the left-hander, and the man that's profited is Ben Day of Australia. He's got an advantage of about 70 metres. Now that could be enough to seal the stage, because he's very, very near to the final turn that will bring him up the finishing straight. So here he comes, Ben Day, still ahead of the pack behind that are beginning to raise their game. Now then, I think he's just about going to be pipped on the line, and it looks like Zanini of Italy and the Quick Step Divitamon team it is. Zanini takes the stage victory, but Day finished high up in the end. But it was victory for Stefano Zanini, a man that's won the final stage in the Tour de France before. He's a chance to see the closing stages.
Sì, perché negli ultimi 2 chilometri io ho chiuso un buco su su un corridore e siamo rimasti soli noi due. Poi siamo entrati nell'ultimo chilometro, c'era il gruppo è ritornato, io non era troppo vicino per aspettare buone, per guardare dov'era e io sono partito a fare la mia volata.
So there's confirmation of Zanini's victory over 5 hours in the saddle today at an average speed of 41.2 kilometres an hour. Kevin Van Impe grabbed second, with the best placed British rider being Roger Hammond in sixth. All the big names, including Bartoli, Wiggins and Kluden, finished in the same time as Zanini in the main field. So it's an Italian that takes the first yellow jersey of the race. While he was taking the cheers from the Manchester crowd, Scotland's Duncan Urquhart, having cracked, finished over 22.5 minutes down. Well, when all the time bonuses have been taken into account, this is the general classification. Zanini leads by 4 seconds from Van Impe, Boraggio is third. Despite being in last place, Duncan Urquhart takes the King of the Mountains jersey after leading over the 2 big climbs. Being first category, they were both worth 10 points, making him the surprise leader of the classification.
I'm definitely going to try and defend the jersey. I mean, I'm not under any illusions who I'm up against, but I'm definitely going to give it a good fight for it and try and keep it as long as possible.